Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alacius Inger.
And I'm your host, Duncan Sandlin. How's it going today, Lace?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So we got exciting news stuff today in the world, and then we're going to do some financial planning stuff. So you want to dive right in?
Yep, let's jump right in.
Rock and rollin', okay. First exciting story we're going to cover is there's in Florida, the land of I don't know, scholarly thought, as it were. There is a new bill coming out, and it wants to put a ban on when teachers can talk to female students about menstruation. Yeah. Yeah. So this one was written by a man, but we're gonna watch the damage report, and he's gonna go over it. His name is John Icoletti, and he's gonna cover a little bit for us.
You might have heard about this proposed bill in Florida that would ban girls in school from talking about their periods with school officials. And you might think, well, is this the media getting ahead of themselves? No, when asked about it, the person sponsoring this bill makes pretty clear that, yes, it would have that consequence. Take a look at this.
Does this bill prohibit conversations about menstrual cycles? Because we know that typically the ages is between 10 and 15. So if little girls experience their menstrual cycle in 5th grade or 4th grade, will that prohibit conversations from them since they are in the grade lower than 6th grade?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would.
Okay. So there you go. So I can't even imagine. I'm not a girl, so I can't even imagine. But it's like, so little Susie's in 4th or 5th grade, has her period for the first time, probably freaking out. Chip in anytime. You're a woman. I don't know what that's like, so I can't.
Well, when I was in 4th and 5th grade, I believe that was when all of the girls were brought into the library and sat down and had conversations about that, and we were shown the different products, that people used, because they were aware that that's the time that some girls start getting them. Some girls don't get it until middle school, but that sort of upper elementary age group is kind of the beginning of that.
Yeah.
So that's when we had that sort of little segments of education, and I feel like even then I appreciated that they were, explaining that. I have always had a very open relationship with my mother and could have conversations of that sort with her as well, but I really appreciated that, like, they really took time and we could ask questions and whatnot, and not everybody had such a comfortable dialogue with their parents. So I really thought it was a good thing. So to now place this on teachers where they can't, have these discussions with students when other than maybe a parent or family member, that's kind of who the kid's probably going to go to.
Yeah. And
maybe
but if you have a situation where, I mean, this is what makes these things so dicey. It's the whole thing with the book banning in Florida, too, in the same state, right? Where the schools got to the point where they didn't know what was going to be banned, what they were going to get sued on for having in the school. So they just took all the books out of the library and out of the school. So a lot of these grade schools, junior highs and high schools in Florida have no books. Unless they're whatever the textbooks. You can't go check out a fiction novel from the library. There's none of that's there. Right. And it's one of those things here where I could see where it's like, okay, girl in your class, like your teacher, girl in your class is menstruating. I'd go get a female teacher and say, hey, can you, or a female faculty member or somebody, right? And say, hey, can you help her out? But if you took her to the bathroom and gave her, a tampon or something, or maxi pad, does that constitute as you discussing it with her? Because you probably have to show her how to use it. Right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And then you could get fired and get sued and lose your job. What's your other option? Let the girl sit there and bleed all day until her parents can come get her? This is just sick. I don't know where you can go beyond. This is just fucking sick.
I just don't like putting that sort of a restriction on teachers.
Yeah.
I am a teacher, and I teach high school students, so I don't teach kids that are
that young,
in that young age bracket. But girls come and ask me for products. You know, at one point there was a point in time on a certain year that actually I happened to be the only female teacher in my particular grade.
Right.
So if a girl had a situation, I was the one that year in particular that she would be coming and speaking to.
Right.
And I can't imagine not being able to speak to her about it. And these are not long, detailed conversations, but geez, if I was teaching a fifth grader and that fifth grader is having that, happen for the first time,
what do you do?
A little more conversation to, give the product and explain, what needs to happen with it or whatever, you know what I mean? Or the kid just might have questions,
Well, I mean, that's like, I think it's stupid that they ban a lot of sex ed stuff. I mean, I remember condoms on a banana and stuff like that. Condoms on a zucchini or, cucumber or whatever. We all had to do that. I remember doing that. I think I was in junior high. That was a fun course. That was really funny. A bunch of fucking immature 12 and 13-year-olds with condoms and produce. It's funny. It's, but yeah, nobody got pregnant from it. I can tell you that.
Right.
In fact, it probably prevented a lot of pregnancies.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, just weird stuff. Because I remember, junior high or high school, you could literally go to the nurse's office and they'd give you condoms.
Right. At the school that I work in, there is a clinic on the first floor of the building, and students can go and get them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the problem with that is. But yeah.
They can also get their birth control taken care of there. They can get all sorts of things there, so I don't know. I don't know why we want to promote lack of access or ignorance of issues because we're trying to ban people from having actual conversations.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, and it also goes now to their next story, the Republicans, sort of their bans of abortion after Roe v. Wade was overturned by the very conservative Supreme Court. Tens of thousands of women are, suffering because of that, because they can't get medical treatments that they desperately deserve. Because a lot of abortions, a lot are because they're in a financial position or they're just not ready to have children. But there are a lot of abortions that are performed because it's a medical necessity. The woman could die if you carry out the pregnancy, or the fetus is totally unviable. I read a horrible one recently. I can't remember what state it was, with the fetus. I mean, the woman wanted to have the kid, but the fetus never formed a skull. And so they were telling her it's not going to survive outside the womb. It's going to die. And doctor had to tell her, I can't give you an abortion because it's illegal. You have to carry it to term. So she had to give birth to this. It lived for a few hours in probably absolute agony and then died. And then she had to go through the whole pregnancy process, which damaged her body. And I mean, it's just sick stuff. But anyway, what's happened now is because of these abortion bans, people are flocking to states where people can afford to, at least, the women that can afford to, are flocking to states where they can get abortions. So they'll take like a trip to, this one's in Illinois. In Illinois, southern Illinois, because of where Illinois sits, it borders a bunch of states that have banned abortion. So Illinois has got a problem now where these clinics are now overloaded. And they're booking like 3 weeks to a month in advance for abortions because they just can't fit everybody. So we're going to look at this story real quick.
Hope Clinic, how may I help you?
At Granite City, Illinois' Hope Clinic for Women,
We are booked out to August.
calls have tripled since the Dobbs decision. Illinois now surrounded by a growing number of states where the procedure is illegal or restricted.
We have patients from Texas traveling 9-10 hours by car.
With Missouri just across the river, they were used to treating patients from outside Illinois. But in the last 3 weeks, scheduled women from at least 16 different states. Now the clinic says 86% of its patients come from out of state.
We've increased the number of nurses, clinical staff, patient educators, and really importantly, front desk staff.
They help patients navigate what has become a confusing landscape of laws across state lines.
This is just crazy. Because you think of the expense. You got to take time off. You got to be able to travel. Right? You pay for the abortion.
I remember when I was in high school, I grew up in the state of North Dakota, and there was one clinic in the entire state of North Dakota that you could utilize for that procedure, and it didn't keep girls from getting them. It just made it more difficult. People would have to take the time off and drive across the state because it was not where I lived.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly close. So drive across, half the state of North Dakota to get to the one clinic that offered it. So now exacerbate that by you have to go to an entirely different state because there's not even one in your state,
On top of the fact that you're talking about who does this really hurt the most is women who can't afford it. So you're talking predominantly Black women, Hispanic women, Native American women, poor white women. They can't afford to do that. As opposed to, if you'd have made it ubiquitous, it wouldn't be a big problem. Now you're having a lot of unwanted children, and a lot of these women are now a lot more impoverished. Permanently, because they have to take care of the child, or they're traumatized because they have to have the child, give it up for abortion. Adoption. Plus, there's the medical risks of not being able to have an abortion if you have a medical issue. And now you have to risk your life before the doctor will give you an abortion because of the law. In some of these states, they're going to make it illegal. Period. It's going to be just let the woman die. It's gotten to the point where it's crazy. And then a lot of these states are going to they've been trying to do these bills where if you go out of state and get an abortion and come back, then it's a felony. They'll charge you with murder.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So if they do shit like that, you're going to see a lot of these women just fleeing these southern states. Yeah. All these women are going to have to flee to blue areas where they can, be safe. Because if they go home, they'll go to prison. That's just crazy. The thing that kills me, but it's
not only do you find out you're pregnant, but then you basically have to either decide you're going to have a child or move to another state. Not just go to another state, literally move. So you have to make two,
if you can afford to move, yeah.
Right. I'm not saying having an abortion is not a life-altering decision, because certainly it is.
Sure.
But then you really are stuck with multiple life-altering decisions. So in order to terminate a pregnancy, you have to permanently move out of your state so that you don't have to go to prison, or you have to carry to term and
that's a life sentence. That's kind of a life sentence. Yeah, and that's a life sentence in itself. Yeah. The thing too about this is, with all these Republicans, if it were men who were getting pregnant and giving birth, you'd be able to get an abortion at 7-Eleven. That's a fact. You'd be like, my other friend called me up, like, dude, she lied to me. Now I'm pregnant. What are we going to do? I'm like, it's fine. We're going to go get you a slushie and an abortion, and then we're going to go see the new Marvel movie, and you'll feel better. It would be that fucking easy.
Right. Okay, you're saying that a little funny, but the fact of the matter is, let's stop and think, how many parts of your body are being heavily regulated by the government?
None.
I can't think of any. Are there any parts of your body that are being heavily regulated by the government?
No.
No.
No. I'm not a psychologist, but maybe we could get one on to talk about Republicans and conservative fears of vaginas. Because that's really all this is at the end of the day. Well, I don't know why they're so afraid of it. I mean, it's just weird.
And why they have such a need to control it. You're afraid of it and you need to control it. Why are you trying to control all the vaginas? That's craziness.
Well, plus, let me just throw this from just a ethical, not an ethical, but financial sort of, just cold-blooded financial perspective here, right? If you want to make that argument, which is this. Once we got birth control and abortion, you notice that was the time when our economy really started booming, because now the other half of our workforce could start working and they weren't beholden to their menstrual cycle. They had more control.
Yeah. Right.
Every country that we've done that in, where we've emancipated women, given them the right to vote, right to work, and let them control, their own bodies. Every country we've done that in is instantly gotten way better. Overnight. It happens like that. And yet now these guys want to roll it all back and what? So we can be what, like Uganda? I mean, fuck that shit. I just don't get it. I don't. I mean, ethically, we could say all kinds of things. It's horrific, but that's where it's going. So it's going. Well, let's do something a little bit more fun here. Donald.
Yeah, we can't talk about periods.
I know.
And nobody can have an abortion, so
I know the ban on
figure it out, girls. Just figure it all out.
The ban on vaginas. I almost did a story. They're also trying to force software companies to put automatically put like censorship on porn. And I'm like, do you know how freaking difficult that would be? That's fucking stupid.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Like, kids aren't going to be able to find a way around to get porn anyway on the internet. Come on.
I mean, if people want it, they're going to find it. No judgment either way, but you're really not going to be stopping that. You're not going to.
You're not going to stop a 13-year-old from finding that shit. It's just not going to happen. It's better to just...
Quite frankly, they're just doing too much.
Yeah.
They're just doing too much.
Yeah. I don't know why we're trying to stop the horniness in teenagers. It's not going to happen. But speaking of...
The teachers can't talk to them about their periods, taking away their porn, and they can't have abortions. Jeez, I don't know.
Speaking of horny idiots, Donald Trump. Like that segue?
Grab them by the parts that we're trying to completely regulate and not talk about.
Yep. He did his first big sort of rally for his presidential run. It was in Waco, Texas. And he did it on the anniversary of the Chapel Hill Waco thing where the feds were there for 2 months and like 80-something people died. And that's become a big like right-wing anti-law enforcement kind of holiday. So it's like, yep. So he's placating to the right wing, especially like the neo-Nazi kind of groups. But let's watch a little bit of Donald Trump in Waco. Let's see what the news says. Tell me, Steve Pickett from CBS News Texas.
President Donald Trump, as you know, wrapping up that massive rally in the city of Waco this evening. It's being called his first presidential rally ahead of next year's election. Tens of thousands of people from around the country and right here in Texas as well coming out to support the former president. A big question a lot of folks were wondering today was whether those large crowds that usually accompany Mr. Trump would show up considering all of his current legal troubles. CBS News Texas's J.D. Miles has been inside that rally and has an answer to that question.
The city of Waco was expecting 15,000 people at the airport today. It seemed like a lot more than that. And those we spoke with say they aren't bothered at all by the multiple criminal investigations looming over Trump's president.
All right, so here we go. Man on the street stuff. Are you ready, Lacey? He's going to interview the people. You ready?
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
You afraid?
I was there. Where were you? 2023, Waco, Texas, baby.
The 2024 presidential campaign for Donald Trump began today in Waco,
Making America great again.
where his supporters reveled in an energized festival atmosphere.
Like, helps us remember what he did for us.
Despite the lingering threat that Trump could soon face possible indictments in several states that are currently investigating the 45th president.
They intend on Donald Trump being the 47th president.
These supporters believe all of the investigations are political witch hunts designed to stop him from another term in the White House.
We're not going to get a preacher in chief. I mean, one of my coworkers said today, she said, they're all crooked.
It doesn't really seem to be affecting this crowd. I mean, everybody can look past that.
I don't believe that anything bad will happen.
Thomas Isbell says he's been to more than 100 Trump rallies as a supporter and a vendor. It was Michelle Burke's first.
We just so happened to be in Waco for a girls' weekend and wound up here.
I asked some of the supporters.
You're going to a Trump rally for Girls' Weekend? I think they're doing it wrong.
How did you end up in Waco, Texas for a girls' weekend anyway? Shouldn't you be in Cabo at Senior Frogs?
Right? Okay, let's start there, but then let's say, okay, so you randomly end up at Waco for a girls' weekend, and you're going to be like, instead of, going and finding, a place that serves great margaritas or daiquiris or a wine bar or something, you're going to a Trump rally? Oh, jeez.
So many mistakes were made by those women. Where do you want to go for girls' weekend? How about Waco, Texas? Woo! Okay.
Let's go to the Trump rally where we can support the guy that wants to regulate our business.
All right. So we can sit there and listen to him talk about nothing for 3 hours. Let's see if he talks to some more people. This has gotten ridiculous with these guys.
If there's any way they could vote for another Republican presidential candidate, they all told me no and are steadfast in their loyalty to Trump.
He seems to care about us and our military.
He cares about, he gives a shit about you, I'm sure.
Military, our border, the drugs that are coming across our border.
We found one protester among the crowd who accused Trump of using his Waco visit to compare his own legal troubles with the government to the Branch Davidian standoff that ended 30 years ago next month.
I feel like that's what he's doing by using Waco and the unfortunate history of Waco and the anniversary of the Waco siege to try to have an undermining thing with saying that there's too much government, or it's a government overreach, basically, for what's going on in his personal life.
Well, I think Julie there nailed it. That's exactly the message. He's trying to compare what happened in Waco to him. That's the whole point. That's the whole we need to revolt against the government shit. Love the smartest person there looks like she's 17. Give her balls standing out there by herself.
Maybe her parents are the lone little blueberries in the sea of gazpacho though over there. Yeah. I don't know. I like her, though. I like her, too.
She's got balls. I like that. I like that in my women. I like it when they got balls. So anyway, the Waco thing was all stupid. Ted Nugent played there. Speaking of alleged pedophiles. That's really depressing. If Ted Nugent's playing your concert, that's really depressing. My other favorite Ted Nugent story, you might like this one. So, it's it was last year or a year or two ago. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did their list of the 100 greatest guitarists of the 20th century, right? Mm-hmm. And Ted Nugent was not on it. And he was very upset. He was very upset. But you know who was on it? I think she was in like 85 or 6, something like that. She was somewhere in the 80s. Was Joan Jett.
Hey, love
And
that.
Ted
Love
Nugent
me some Joan Jett.
and Ted Nugent started talking shit about Joan Jett, and they only put her on there because she's a woman, and he was talking all this shit, and they finally got it. You know, they talked to Joan Jett, who was doing some tour, and they were like, "Well, Ted Nugent said this. Do you have any comment?" She's like, "No, I think if you get up in the morning and you're Ted Nugent, you have enough problems."
That feels pretty legit, yeah.
And then he tried to clap back, and she just ignored him. And it's like, dude, did you really think you were going to get in a bitch fight with Joan Jett and win? I mean, were you alive? You were alive in the 80s, Ted. You saw Joan Jett. That woman didn't take shit from anybody. Well, we got one more story out of Florida. You and I, we'll do that, and then we'll jump into some finance stuff.
Florida, what are you doing now, Florida?
Florida, can't resist. Do we ease into this, or we dive in? I think we're gonna dive in, and we're just gonna let Alex Wagner on MSNBC do this story for us. The title of the story she's doing is, as you can see, "This is nuts." And it's actually
parental rights. Parents, send your kids out of the room or avert their eyes. What I'm about to show you might upset your children. It might frighten your family. So I'll give you a moment. Okay, are you ready? This is a 17-foot tall statue of David, made by one of the greatest artists of the Renaissance, Michelangelo, in the early 1500s. Arguably one of the most famous sculptures in the world. And yes, for the record, David is totally nude.
Did you catch that he's nude?
Yep. He's wearing his birthday suit.
Yep. Well, apparently this got into the Florida schools, and let's see if she jumps into it here. A principal in a Florida school in Tallahassee got fired because they taught a lesson about the statue of David, and they showed it nude to a bunch of middle school students.
What were they supposed to put a pair of shorts on them or something? Come on now.
Well, they point out that during there was a like a Protestant revival in the, what was it, like a century or so afterwards, where what they did was they put a stoned fig leaf on top of it to cover it, and they covered up a couple of other Michelangelo statues that were nudes, and then there was some argument about painting over the nudity in the Sistine Chapel at the time, but the Pope overrode it, right? But that's what they're talking about, is they were not happy about, oh no, our kids saw a penis. Like, do your kids have Netflix? They've seen a penis. I mean, your kids have, Showtime? I'm sure they've seen a penis.
Do they have the internet?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Do they have locker rooms? I mean, the list goes on and on, right?
Well, I know about half of them have seen a penis just by looking down. But
okay, and the other half have through a variety of other ways.
Yeah, and I can tell you from the perspective of a straight male, once you've seen one penis, you've kind of seen them all. Some are big, some are small, some are a little different shapes, but they're all pretty much the same thing. I mean,
there aren't a lot of surprises.
No. Nope. Let's see what this.
Channeling that 16th century fig leaf campaign. A charter school in the state capital called Tallahassee Classical. The school began teaching Michelangelo's masterpieces to its 6th graders, meeting a school mandate to teach kids in that grade about the Renaissance. But one parent complained that the lesson, which included Michelangelo's David and the creation of Adam, along with Botticelli's Birth of Venus, that parent complained that the lesson was pornographic. 2 other parents complained that they were not notified in advance that the lesson included nudity, that might upset their kids. Seemingly inspired by Governor Ron DeSantis' parental rights / don't say gay legislation, that Tallahassee Charter School Board passed a rule last month requiring 2 weeks advance notice for parents of any curriculum that is potentially controversial. The chairman of the school's board, who wants Tallahassee Classical to be on the cutting edge of DeSantis' education agenda, he said parental rights are supreme, and that means protecting the interests of all parents, whether it's 1, 10, 20, or 50.
Jeez, that is so stupid.
A lot of teachers don't know what they're doing tomorrow, let alone do they know what they're doing 2 weeks from now. And to know what they're doing 2 weeks from now in a manner where they are prepared to be able to literally send out notifications to parents about what it is. That's asking a lot. That's really out there.
Well, on top of that fact, now you're allowing one parent to dictate what the other kids can't learn or are not allowed to learn because they think it's controversial. Because what do we do with that one student? I think evolution is controversial. I remember that when I was in junior high. They did that same shit here in Oregon, and it was the the kids that had notes from their parents when we got in biology. They missed the whole half that semester where we covered evolution, and they went to study hall because their parents didn't want them learning evolution because they thought it was too controversial. Even though the biology teacher was pointing out, look, this has been proven science since the 50s. I mean, we know how it works. It's not that complicated of a process. I mean, but those...
Let's just give teachers more reason to quit their jobs.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
They're already running from the profession in droves. Let's add more reasons to run in droves.
Well, they just want to make them like religious schools where they just teach, America's great. Yeah. White people are the saviors of everybody else. Shit like that. I mean, it's all craziness. Women don't have vaginas. It's not a real thing. It's a myth.
Wow, I can't even.
Can't even look at. Oh man, we also reminds me of this. The sex ed thing they used to do. I think it was called the STARS. Students today aren't ready for sex. The STARS program. And the kids I remember that did that, they didn't go to sex ed. They went to this other religious STARS program thing. This is where the purity rings came from and all that crap. And those kids were like 7 or 8 times more likely to get an STD by the time they were 21. They were more likely to engage in anal sex, right, early on, because vaginal sex is a sin, right? They were more likely to get pregnant as teenagers or unwed. I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like, but the kids that went to sex ed tended to have sex later. Didn't tend to get STDs because we knew what condoms were.
Right.
We knew what spermicide was. We knew, Jesus. So, yeah, that's just how it goes. It's the blind leading the blind, I guess, in the South right now, man. And everybody's running. Yeah. Everybody's running to the north to try and get an abortion. So,
man, those are choppy waters down there.
It'd be rough for a teenage girl down there right now. Rough for any woman down there right now, but especially if you're a teenage girl, it's got to be a fucking nightmare living in those states. So,
right? Yeah. Choose your colleges wisely, kids, especially girls.
You might think about going out of state. Anyway, so that was all the news for today that we're going to cover. A lot of sex stuff. Sorry about that. Not our fault. That's just what's going on. We didn't invent it.
Right. It was a very sex-oriented news week, apparently.
Yeah, we'd rather talk about banking shit than finance shit. But,
It's true.
But, sometimes we got to cover some of this stuff. Anyway, so let's do this. So let's learn the math behind becoming a millionaire. Are you ready to learn the math behind becoming a millionaire? Because our buddy, Dave Ramsey, has the math behind becoming a millionaire.
I would love to see them do some math. I suspect we will not see them
do math. No, they never do math. They just say they're going to do math. So let's dive in. Dave Ramsey.
The thing that we have discovered at Ramsey 30 years ago that has made all the difference in the world in people's lives is not the tactical what to do with money.
All right, let me speed him up. I always forget how slow he is.
Stuff. It's the understanding that personal finance is 80% behavior.
Yes.
20% head knowledge. The mathematics of becoming a multi-millionaire are learned by the 6th grade. Spend less than you make.
Oh, Dave. I mean, that requires self-control.
Ta-da! Yeah, so the problem is the guy in my mirror.
Yeah.
If I can control this goober, he can be skinny and rich. But goober has a problem.
Okay. Well, there you go. Just live within your means. That's it. That's the problem. I'm not going to say most people don't overspend. They do, but there is some behavior to it. But a lot of it too is understanding
your
it.
means.
Go ahead.
Living within your means is automatically going to make you a millionaire, huh?
Well, that's the problem. And that's, well, I mean, we harp on it all the time. We might as well just cut to the chase. The problem is that there are two, if you want to be a millionaire, part of it is, yeah, you have to live within your means. You can't spend like an idiot. But the other part of it is you got to make enough money to save that kind of money to be a millionaire.
Right. You have to make enough money and you have to invest it, and you have to invest it very well.
Yeah. I mean, I could make $25,000 a year and live within my means, but I'm never going to be a millionaire. It's just not going to happen. I mean, so this is it's all ridiculous. So, but I could tell you, you know what I learned that? I learned that in 7th grade math. So maybe he should have stayed to junior high, because that's when they covered, oh yeah, you have to have it to grow it, right? That's
right. If you're making $25,000 a year and you're living within your means, and you manage to save $5,000 a year, you'd be saving a huge amount of money on $25,000 a year.
Right.
But how are you turning that into you being a millionaire?
Right. Plus, you don't really learn exponents until 7th grade geometry anyway. So maybe Dave should have stayed in school one more year. He'd understand how wrong this all is.
Problem. His name is Dave. And, you got...
That's true. You have a problem named Dave. I agree with that statement. Do you agree with that statement, or...
Yes.
Lady says, I'm abstaining.
I've got to figure that out, because that's the bad news. The bad news is I'm the problem. The great news is I'm the solution.
Yeah.
It's a decision, something different, because you kind of already know what to do. We'll give you the fine tuning, and we'll show you but we don't sell magic beans here. Jack is not here.
Yeah.
Dave's here.
I'm going to disagree with that. You do sell magic beans. That's what you sell. And he's wrong. You just decide. Lacey, you just decide to be a millionaire. Just decide.
Well, that's easy. I decided I'm going to be a millionaire. Boom. Done.
Done. It's stupid. Just decide.
You have to do the work. There's no easy button to push on this. There's no magic pill, like you said. You're going to have to look at what you're doing, and if you want a different situation, you're going to have to do something different. If you want to experience change, you're going to have to change your habits. That's how it works. You can't just keep doing the same thing and think you're going to get the same result. And what I love about how we teach money is they are very simple concepts, Dave. Very simple. Live on less than you make.
Yeah,
Get on a written plan.
And they're countercultural.
Absolutely.
Because most people spend more than they make.
Yes.
Get out of debt, stay out of debt. That's counterculture, because most people believe you have to have debt to win. And actually the data says in 30 plus years of doing this, leading more people into millionaire status than anybody else.
The data does not agree with that. In fact, most millionaires have had to take out significant amounts of debt throughout their lifetime. So that's just bullshit. This is him quoting his stupid little study, which isn't even a study. But yeah, no, that's bullshit.
Tells me and tells you and tells us at Ramsey that the proper way to do this is get out of debt, because your most powerful wealth building tool is your income.
Yeah.
And so you've got to pay a price to win. You got to live like no one else so that later you can live and give like no one else. There's a price to be paid to get out of the mess that you make.
And then the problem is he's so close. He's right. Your income is your biggest earning savings tool, because that's money coming in. Right? Mm-hmm. You can't pay things unless you have money coming in. So this idea that, yeah, it is your income, but if your income is low, you can't afford to do a lot of shit. Like save a ton of money every month.
Right.
I mean, they're missing the point. Yeah, you have to make choices and change, but you need to understand what you're getting into. And part of the reason I think a lot of people, just my experience, tend to overspend is they don't really understand the value of the money and what they're doing, and they haven't prioritized it. Right? And sometimes, go ahead.
I mean, to a degree, what I can get behind that he says is like having a plan, because there are a lot of people that are just shooting at the hip with their money. But he's sort of oversimplifying it, because you have to earn enough money to be able to save and invest enough money, in order to do these things. And we've discussed before that he's largely, targeting a certain demographic that's not a lower earning demographic. That's not who he's necessarily, who his target audience is.
No, and then the other thing about it too is, there are simple things that everybody says that everybody knows, right? You have to live within your means, right? If you spend more than you make, you're going to be in debt. You're going to be in trouble. Everybody, this is kind of a basic, everybody knows common sense thing, right? So when I say it, it's not a revelation. When Dave says it, it's not like he's figured out something nobody else did. He acts like it when he says it, but that's not what it is. Like you said, you need to live within your means. Yeah, you need to have a plan on what you're going to do. But part of that is you need to figure out what it is you're trying to achieve. Right? And the other thing is when you're doing that, being a millionaire might not be within the plan. It might not be something you care about, or it might just not be possible.
Right.
And then you got to figure out what you really want. But that's the thing is he's promising you can be a millionaire. Well, if you're shooting for a goal that can't be achieved, all you're going to do is fall short. And what is that going to cost you in the long run? Probably quite a bit.
Right. Right.
That's my whole issue. Go ahead.
There's also, sort of the side factor, and we've mentioned this before. Okay, let's say you do achieve millionaire status. Sometimes that can be a little deceiving, because you might technically be a millionaire and really not have much money to be able to just work with, because it could be all tied up in your home and your 401k combination. Right. If it's all tied up there, then you can technically be a millionaire and still, be needing to work because you don't have access to the funds. They're not available to you necessarily, Well, so right. There's the other side of it too, which just sort of drives me a little bit crazy that part is sort of largely ignored.
Yeah. Right. It's that whole thing about how did Elon Musk lose half of his money? Was a couple $100 billion. It's not that he physically had that in cash. That was stock that went down in value. Right. So it's not like that was physically money he had in his hand.
Right.
So, but yeah. So we'll go a little further, because it's just boiling here.
Yeah. And let us be like you said, it is countercultural, because everything out there is telling you
to be reliant on something else. The credit system is telling you, you need credit, you need us, you can't exist in this world without us. And the government tells us the same thing, you need us, you can't exist in this world and pay off your debts, you need us. Everything is giving us the message that we cannot be reliant upon our own volition. You know, we can't handle our money ourselves, we can't do anything on our own. And that's completely false. You actually do have control.
So this is what I love. So she's actually just summed up the entire conservative argument when it comes to finance. And she did it really simplistically. I wish I'd have thought of it. It's their mindset is everybody's telling you you have to be dependent on the system and you have no free will. Right? It's a black or white. Either you have some dependence on the system or you are totally independent. There's no in between. Right? And when they frame, like when we make the argument, what they always frame it as, well, you're just saying that we should give up and be dependent on the system. And we're not saying that. We're saying, yeah, you have to take responsibility for yourself. And you can make choices that'll make your life better. But at the same time, you're a part of society. So if you're not a part of the system and you're not working within the system or working with the system, then how are you going to succeed? And the funny thing about it is these people work in the system and are dependent on the system. They're extremely dependent on the system. And yet they sit there and bitch about the system's always trying to tell us we need to be dependent on them. But you are. They cannot make that money that they make without the system. How do they think the roads are built? The electricity, the sewage. They're going to publish their books. They get copyrights. Who protects their copyrights? Fairies? No, the fucking government.
The copyright fairies.
Right? They're using the internet to broadcast their show, to sell their products and their books. They sell a lot of apps. Right? Who provided all the technology and the infrastructure for that? The federal government. Who developed it? Universities.
Right.
Most of the business technology that we use, most modern technology, developed in universities, paid for by the government. Private companies pick it up and market it. Everything, they are dependent on the system. And yet they're bitching about, well, they're saying you have to be dependent on the system. It's like, yeah, you do a little bit. And if the system is in a position where you're getting fucked, where you're not making a lot of money, you can't get ahead, you grew up poor, you can't get an advantage, then there's a problem there. And you need to start saying, no, I want to get the benefits. I want equal opportunity. But if you're them and you're already rich, well, whoa. Now this all makes sense. Why? No, don't depend on the system. The system sucks. Don't try to change the system. Don't try to improve the system to help you out. No, you just rely on yourself and do it. Because if we change the system, now it's a threat to me and my money. Because the system's already worked for me. I'm already rich.
Right.
So I want the system to be in a position where it makes me richer. Right? And I'm going to talk to you about, well, just be independent and don't depend on the system when I am woefully dependent on the system. These same people, when banks get bailed out for hundreds of billions of dollars, don't bat an eyelash.
It's also being short-sighted to sit and think that you're not in any way dependent on the system. Mm-hmm. You know, you're operating inside of it, and therefore, in some respect, you are dependent on portions of it. Maybe less portions than some other people, but you are dependent on chunks of the system. So it's worth paying attention to and making sure it's a system that's actually serving people, you know?
Well, it just reminds us, like, if you read, like, older books about tribes or, you know, early people, right? And you're sitting there thinking, yeah, you have the tribe or the village, and it's like, these are the people that have all this stuff, but they don't want to work, and then they're bitching about, well, you need to be independent, you need to work harder. No, the tribe would just beat the shit out of you. Or kill you, right? Because you're a fucking drag on the rest of the tribe. You know, if we're in a tribe and I go out and catch 20 fish, and I don't just sit there and hoard them to myself, I share them with the tribe because we're a tribe. Well, we have to depend on each other, because what happens if I get sick or injured and I can't fish? Well, then I'm going to need Lacey to help me out and go fish or something. Right? But this idea that no, just be completely independent. They're trying to make a black and white argument on what's already a very gray situation, which is how do we live together as a society? But that's what it is. Well, you can just do it all on your own. No, you can't. You still have to have a job that somebody gave you. And that person can only provide that job if they're getting benefits from the government, like roads to their business, electricity, internet. I mean, they just don't seem to get it. I mean, it's amazing to me.
Control over how you spend your money. You actually do have control over the decisions that you make. That's false.
But part of it is whether you're 25 or whether you're 55 is growing up.
Absolutely.
And one definition of maturity is the ability to delay pleasure. Adults devise a plan and follow it. Children do what feels good.
Yep.
And I don't care how old you are. If all you do is go on your feelings, then you're a child.
Absolutely.
You have to say, all right, there's a destination over here.
Yeah, but all your decisions here are based on feelings. Let's see if they get anything.
You know what? And not to mention,
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's wildly inappropriate to discount, the power of people's feelings and the power of their intuition.
Sure.
Sometimes you gotta do that gut check, and that's sort of checking in with your feelings. And how do you make decisions about what you want to be doing and what your goals are? You can't just go one size fits all on your money. You have to check in with your feelings to even figure out what you want. So I can't stand that stuff of him telling people, like, what feels good doesn't matter. You know what? If your job feels really terrible every single day, check in with your feelings. That's probably a bad job for you. Don't tell people their feelings don't count.
I think in his mind, he's trying to say, well, sometimes you just have to suck it up and take care of things, which is true. That's fine. I understand it, but that doesn't mean you have to give up your life for that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
But it seems frequently like his advice kind of borders on, give up your life. Like, here's the type of life that you need to have. So if it's not this type of life, right, then you need to exit it. So you don't have to give up your life as long as this is the type of life you pick, right?
Well, right. And that's part of the thing with all these like financial guru guys, even of like the Tony Robbins guru guys or the spiritual. You need to be living the same life I am. Exactly the same. They set the goal for you. They don't ask you, what do you want? It's the assumption is you want to be me. That's where he's starting from. You want to be me. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. But it's not how he did it. But that's the sale point. The sale point is, I'm a rich guy. I'm worth hundreds of millions. I can do all this shit. Be like me. Buy my magic beans, my miracle elixir. That's why he has to constantly say, it's not magic beans. It's not magic beans. The math is settled. Of course, we're not going to do any math, but the math is settled. It's all promise, promise, promise.
We have not yet gotten to the point where we did math.
Yeah. Yep. It's like, it's my boyfriend keeps saying he's going to propose to me, and then it's, every time I ask, it's mañana, mañana, mañana. Right? That's all it is. Yeah, you'll be a millionaire. When? 30 years? It's always, that's how it is. But, keep paying me every month for my app or my product or... Let's see one.
I deserve a new car. Call the Wambulance. Seriously, children do what feels good. Now, I've been...
Okay, well, I'm going to stop there. Okay. You just do what feels good. And I'm going to respond with my feelings about your feelings, but not because it feels good.
Oh, I can't even.
He's a child. All right. Let's take a quick break. Okay. All right. So we're back. So to carry forward, I wanted to go through and Lacey will comment probably quite a lot on this, but we're going to go through we looked at the Dave thing. Let's look at actual financial planning, what actual advisors do, right? So if you ever study to be an advisor, trainer, or any of that stuff, they're going to take you through some basics. These are just the first couple basic steps, okay, for finance, right? So if you're doing your own or somebody else's, the first couple steps you're going to do are these. You're going to want to identify the person you're talking to and what their financial circumstance is. Okay, so what's their age, their marital status, their financial status. Usually that involves a budget, right? And then special needs. They have children. Do they have adult parents they have to take care of, for example? Do they have medical issues, things like that? And then you're going to want to get their attitudes, values, and beliefs about money and what they want to do. So that's usually your first step.
So essentially, this is us zooming in on the present, right? Like
Right.
This is the status quo, zooming in on the present, making sure that we have a shot, if you will, of human being and or family that we're dealing with, right?
Yeah, the person we're dealing with. So if you're doing just yourself, if you're just looking at your own finances, that's the first step. Is you got to sit there and go, okay, well, who am I, right? How old am I, right? Because it's going to be a different thing if you're 45 versus 25, right?
So this is where, it's so funny, Duncan, you just said that, and I imagine there are people out there saying, well, yeah, I know who I am. I know what my marital status is. I know, you know what I mean? But this is where we have to stop and we have to be honest with ourselves and really taking stock of our own snapshot and where we literally are. I can't pretend that I have the same amount of time that my 27-year-old co-teacher has.
Right.
I don't. I'm not 27.
Right.
I might be young and vibrant, but I'm not 27. I can't pretend that I have the same strategy in achieving something that person does, among a whole bunch of other things too. It's not just age, but I think sometimes we're not honest with ourselves and putting, we try to set ourselves these goals, but we're not being honest with where we literally are.
Right. And that's where traps happen in your life. So, a lot of people do sort of overspend, and that's pretty common. And part of that is because, and we can even, let me bring this up, because this is actually good. I pulled this article up. Let's see if we can, was this it? Hang on. Let me make sure I have the right one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I do. So I read this CNBC article. They were talking consumers overspend by about $7,400. And they talk about, most consumers. So they're talking about people making a decent living when they talk about consumers. They're not talking about lower income. They're talking about middle and higher. But it's about 74, like 3 out of 4 say they have a budget, but, most of them fail short of following it. And then they go through this kind of stuff. And I mean, this is all speculative stuff, but they talk about these are the things that kind of screw up people's budgets is they shop online too much. They overspend on groceries, subscription services like Netflix, Hulu, etc. They buy too much technology products. They eat out too much, buying lunch every day. Household stuff, they'll overspend. Coffee, I think is kind of a ridiculous one, but okay. I don't drink coffee, but I still think it's ridiculous. Food delivery, gym memberships, etc. And I think a lot of it is when you're asking yourself that first question about, well, who am I, right? What is, like I said, when we go into that who am I question at the very beginning: age, marital status, financial status, special needs, attitudes, values, and beliefs. Now we're asking ourselves, okay, what's my time frame? What do I want to accomplish? Right? But before I can get to that, I need to figure out, okay, well, where am I at right now? Okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract where I'm at from what I want, and that's going to be what I need to do to achieve that goal in a simple term. And that's what these first two steps are, is to figure out, one, where you're at, two, where you want to be. Right? What are your goals? So right now, like Lacey was saying, you need to be honest. Look, I like having lunch out. Is that something I want to give up? Right.
And if you're not going to give it up, be honest. You know, I have this conversation with my clients when we get into the budget stuff, actually relatively often. And I tell my clients, if you are going to do this thing every month or every week or every whatever it is, put it in there. Make a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not pretend that we are not going out for happy hour every Friday. Well, let's not pretend that that's not happening. And then it happens every week. You know, I don't care what it is. If it's a massage or a toy you buy your kid once a week or whatever, if it's really going to happen, we're not doing ourselves a service if we're not putting it in there.
Right.
So it's just be honest for it and make a cut somewhere else something we don't care about.
Right.
You know?
Well, my perspective too on budgeting is I don't like to be real uptight, like you have to live to the penny thing, but it's also, look, if you're going to roughly spend $400 a month on golf, then you need to put it in there that I'm going to spend $400 or $500 a month on golf.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's just, you need to put it in there. That's, it doesn't have to be exact, but it needs to be, right? It needs to be in there. So like, okay, if I usually spend $400, I'll put in the budget. Okay, I spend $500 a month on golf. That way, at the end of the month, I'm not behind on my budget. I'm sitting there going, oh, well, I still have an extra $90 that I didn't spend on golf. So bonus, I'll throw that in my savings.
Right.
Right. But you need to be realistic about these things. Right. So yeah, who are you? Is where are you at? Right. You got to factor in things like, hey, if you're married or you're in a couple, it's like, yeah, you're probably going to want to spend some money on date night or going out or anniversary gifts. You know, you don't want to have a miserable relationship where we're just super frugal and don't do anything. Right. So, yeah, I mean, just to get a sense of who you are. So ask that question, because that's the question. If you come into my office, I'm going to start asking you a bunch of questions like that, trying to figure out who is this actual person. That way, I'm not bullshitting you later on because I missed something, right? Where I'm sitting there thinking, oh, well, this guy's got an extra $1,000 a month in his budget. And then I realize, oh, no, he likes to gamble. And no, he's really behind every month. So then whatever financial plan I do is worthless, and I've just wasted a ton of time, my time and the client's time. Because I didn't have that one thing, right? That changed it all. So yeah. So that's step one. Step one, just be honest with yourself about who you are, where you're at. You know, there's no wrong answers. I think people get ashamed sometimes of how they spend money, and I don't get ashamed. Just you got to get a sense of where it's going and what your priorities are in that. Then the next thing to do, step two, is to sit down and go, okay, let's identify and I prioritize our goals. What do we want? Okay. So they're quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative are, things that we can measure pretty easily, right? Like your financial status. Okay. I want to get rid of my debts. Right, that would be a quantitative goal. I want to have this much in cash savings would be a quantitative goal, right? Or cash, or this much at the end of every month, or cash savings. I want to be able to purchase these things or have these things. These would be financial status kind of goals that we can measure. Things where you can
very easily measure it by maybe assigning a number to it, or it's extremely tangible. These tend to be extremely tangible types of goals.
Easy to determine. Other things on that would be investments. So long-term and short-term, your retirement versus short-term investments. Are you investing in a business? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to buy multiple homes and rent one out? Do you want to improve the home you're in and up its value? Because that's an investment for a long-term investment. Do you want to get a bigger home? Whatever, right? Those things would be investments. And then risk and legal things typically are like, am I insured in case something happens? So insurance would be good. Emergency savings would count as insurance for something happening. And then do I have things like wills, trusts, etc.? All those things mapped out. So those would be quantitative, right? Qualitative goals are going to be things that are more about personal desires, right? So simple things like lifestyle goals. I want to be able to go on vacation every year, right? We can't always assign a number to that, but it depends on what it is, right? I want to be able to work part-time when I'm 50. I don't want to work full-time in my 50s. That would be a lifestyle goal. I want to spend more time with my family and my kids. That would be family and health.
Or perhaps if it's couples, younger couples, we as a couple would like for one parent to be a stay-at-home parent when children are happening.
Right.
That's another sort of lifestyle goal that comes into play. Right?
Absolutely. So these are all important things to think about, and what do we really want going forward? And then you sort of put down like, okay, well, I want it in this time frame or that time frame, and then we start to narrow down on how to get there. So just to make it easy, really simple, just to show you guys sort of what a financial plan kind of looks like. So once you have step 1 and 2, right? I have where they're at, kind of where they want to be, right? Then what I'm going to do is figure out, okay, well, where they want to be minus where they're at equals what they need to do to get there. Right. And that's when the recommendations start coming in. And then this is the first 3 steps. This process goes on and on because I'll make the recommendations. The guy will poo-poo, or the client will poo-poo them. I don't like that one or that one or that one. I like this one, but can we try these things? And then you come back and forth until you finally get a plan together. And then once the plan gets together, things change in that person's life. And so you have to constantly be following up with them and altering the plan. Right? Because it might be, oh, now I'm having a kid. I didn't expect it. But now I want to change the plan to fit the kid into it. Okay, well, now it's a whole new plan. Right. So that's the planning process. It's a never-ending thing. It's not like you ever stop. But here's a simple one to start with, just for you starting out on your own. You've determined kind of where you're at, what your spending habits are, what you want for that, what your lifestyle is, what you want to change, don't want to change. Then you determine kind of what you want. Then you prioritize. I want this, and then this, and then this. These are the goals. Simple stuff. And then we start to figure out recommendations. So here's a quick example. I just did a person, Jane. And Jane's a 25-year-old. She's female. She's single. And Jane works as a chef. And she makes $60,000 a year. So after tax, she makes about $4,000 a month after tax. And her monthly budget, she spends about $3,500. So Jane lives pretty cheap, right? But she has $500 a month that she can save. Okay? So she's in a good place with her budget, right? Jane, for her goals, she doesn't want debt. And she has $25,000 for culinary school, but she wants to pay off. So that's one of her goals. Okay? Her other big goal is she wants to purchase a home. And she wants to do both of these things before she's 30, let's say. Okay? And I just threw in, she has $4,000 in savings. So she's got a little bit of cash. So I just did a quick example of Jane. So she has the $4,000 saved, and she's got the $500 per month that she can throw either at her student loans or at the house or both. But I just ran it one or the other. So let's say she decides she wants to pay off the student loans. That's the priority. Okay? Well, in figuring out the priority, what we need to do is figure out what are the rewards and what are the sacrifices that are being made. in the priority. So if priority is to pay off the loan, she could pay off that student loan at 4.6% interest, which is, I think, average right now. She could pay off that loan at $500 a month, and she could pay it off in 55 months. So it's about 4.5 years, a little over 4.5 years. So she'd be 29 and a half, almost 30, and she'd have paid off all of her student loans, but she wouldn't have any other real savings other than her $4,000. So she wouldn't be in a position really to purchase a house unless she borrowed all the money, right? Now, she could take that $500 a month and save it, and I just assumed 6% growth on the investment savings, and she could save $30,000, which is 10% on a $300,000 house or condo, whatever. She could save $30,000 for a down payment, and she could do that in 44 months, which would be 3.5 years. The negative is she'd still owe the student loans. So she could either be in a position where she could be buying a house in 3.5 years and then focus on her student loans, or she could focus on her student loans, continue to rent, which is kind of throwing money down the tube, if you ask me, but it's up to her. And then she could be in a position to start saving for the house. But she has the options. So the question then becomes, what's more important, right? And what trade-off are you willing to make?
And ultimately, she gets to decide,
Yeah.
Or she could choose a different option entirely, right? She could do a little bit of each, but know that her progress toward both of them is going to take longer.
A lot longer, yeah.
She could try to speed it up if she could find some way to increase her income, but that's probably a real short-term sort of play if she decided to do that. But I think this is really good, giving her the opportunity to see the options, and so she can kind of sit with it. And this is where I'm going to say, what feels good actually counts. I know when Ramsey's saying this thing, he's talking about making choices and being responsible, but I don't love that he frames it that way, because how she feels is going to dictate which of these choices she makes. When she sees those options, one's going to feel better than the other, and that's where she's going to go.
And the point is this is being responsible because we have a plan.
Right.
And both of them get her what she wants. Now, let's say she's not happy with either of these. She wants it, both of them, and she wants to do it by the time she's 30. Right? Well, then something has to change in the equation. Because her goal didn't change, so her circumstance now has to change to make that more possible. And if that's a lot of what Ramsey talks about, but he doesn't ever get into this, what the actuality is of it. Because the actuality is if she wants to change this so she can have it by the time she's 30, she has to alter her circumstances, her current circumstance. And there's basically 4 things she can do in altering her current circumstance. She can, 1, live on even less money than she's living on now and try to save more, right? She can, 2, make more money, either getting a higher paying job if that's possible, working more hours if that's possible, right? But she'd have to make that sacrifice. Or she could take riskier investments and invest and hope they work out, which is dangerous, because if they don't, she could lose money, right? But that's basically trying to make her money earn more money. Or she can just change or alter her goals.
Right, which might be altering the time frames for some of them or something like that, yeah.
And being more realistic about it, etc. Now, in most situations, and this is where the quibble comes down with Dave Ramsey in the video we watched, was their whole thing is, well, it's always one. There's only the one option. Less money. Live on less money. Sacrifice and live on less money. But that doesn't always get you there. Right? Because if you're only making $60,000 a year, how much less can she live on?
Right. You might be able to do that a little.
Yeah.
I mean, she might be able to eke out another $100 a month, that she could throw into something, but she might not be able to eke out a lot.
Yeah. On top of that fact, it's like, okay, make more money. Well, I'm sorry, if you're a chef, you're already working god awful hours. And you have to be on your game. It's not like, it's not like you can be at work tired and screwing up orders. You lose your job, lose your reputation, right? So her working more hours might not be feasible either, right? So in this situation, more realistic and taking more risky investments is not smart because she could potentially lose her money. And she's not in a position where she can afford to lose a lot of savings. Right?
Right.
So in this position, it might be the more realistic solution is right now, let's just alter our goal until something changes. Maybe you get a raise, maybe something happens, maybe you find a better job in the next couple of years. But for now, it might just be that you just need to change your expectations a little bit. And that's the reality for most people. But to sit there and say, well, no, you have to just live on less money. Right?
Right.
And he would tell her, well, you have to get rid of the debt. It's like, well, it actually is probably smarter for her to just pay off the debt over time. Just financially speaking. If it were me and it was just my personal recommendation, I'd say, hey, I would rather save the money, you save the money, and throw some of the money at the house. Because then you'd have an asset.
Right.
It'd probably lower your monthly payments.
I'm pretty
You get a tax break.
I'm pretty anti-debt. I don't like having extra payments on things. So I would be definitely on team get rid of the debt. But the truth is, I might not get rid of the debt before I got my down payment on the house. I'd probably get my down payment on the house, get moved into the house, and once I reconfigured my budget, then I'd go gung-ho and attack the debt to try to get rid of it, So that's also where it goes back to, it's not one size fits all. You have to take who you are into consideration,
right,
and prioritize your goals based on who you are and what you want.
Right. And then depending on the situation with the house, like I was saying, you get the tax break on the house. Your rent probably, if you've got a decent mortgage, you're probably less than your rent, plus the tax break you get at the end of the year and all that. You could probably get rid of the debt even faster because you'd have more excess cash because you wouldn't be paying as much every month to live.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, there's a possibility to that. Plus, you'd have your money would be going into an asset that gains value every year going forward.
Or if she bought the house first and she's, in her 20s, not saying everyone who's in their 20s wants a roommate, but that's a time in your life where having roommates is pretty common,
Yeah.
And so if you bought the house and you had extra rooms, maybe that's how you help tackle some of your debt more quickly. You rent out some of these rooms and
but that would be
your own cost of living lower, right? But that would be also prioritizing the house first.
Yeah, but that would also be number 4. She'd have to change and alter her goal. She says, okay, I bought the house, but now I got to have a roommate. It's like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. But that's what that would be, is you're altering your goal. Right. So that's basically the gist, the ups and downs of the basic starts of a financial plan. Right. Who are we talking to, or who are we dealing with? What's their situation? Right. What are their goals? What are their values? Then let's talk about what are their actual goals and what they want. And let's prioritize those, and then let's look at different ways to get there. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's basically, A plus B equals C kind of. And we just do a little algebra, and that's it. And that's the whole general concept. So I thought that was important to go through, because I think it gets kind of lost in the weeds a lot of the times, where they talk about, oh, just be a millionaire, do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, but we don't know who we're talking to. Right? It's the whole, strategies in jungle warfare don't apply in the desert. So why am I doing jungle warfare in the desert? You know?
Good question. Good question.
I'm just saying. So let's do one last video. We're going to do I guess it's kind of a cage match. I've already seen it. And I already know I'm going to win. So it's kind of a weak cage match on my part. But it's a pretty simple example.
I haven't seen it. So.
But Lacey will do her match. She'll see if she can guess what's going to happen. So this is George Skippy Camel.
My crystal ball.
Yeah, you got your crystal ball? Can you see it?
Yep.
Madam Zelda?
I got a crystal for that.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is George Skippy Camel and Rachel Where Are We Cruise on the Dave Ramsey Show. And they're going to talk about, what's the name of this? Don't be an idiot. The two people that I really trust to tell me about being an idiot. Here they are.
Why is your car payment $1,300?
Because first of all, this vehicle was $62,000. I did it for 60 months instead of 72, and I went $0 down. I just didn't want to put any money down because it doesn't make any sense to me.
How much money do you save if you put more money down?
So basically, every $1,000 that you put down is about $20. So it would take $5,000 for me to lower my monthly payment by $100. So in $1,300 versus $1,200, same thing.
Yeah, it would take you, what is that, 60 months to get your money back, or 50 months?
Oh yeah, to get $5,000 back. Oh, it'd take way too long.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, Lacey. Look, let me do their face. You're already doing Rachel's face. Wow. First off, he's right. The guy is not... No. He's not being rational. In fact, if you paid the $5,000 down, he'd save a lot more in interest on the back end. So he'd have saved money. He's looking at more in the immediate expenditure, right? Do I want to put the $5,000 down now, or do I want to keep it? So, yeah, I mean, he's mathematically, he would have saved more if he'd have put the money down. Right. But you could also say if he invested the $5,000, he'd have made more on the back end anyway. So it could have gone either way. But either way, it's like $1,300 for a car payment is a lot.
That is a lot.
But let's face it.
To be honest, I got a little hung up on how high of a car payment this person got themselves. To be totally honest with you, I was like, wow.
Well, but he bought a $62,000 SUV, right? I do not think this guy is struggling for cash. I think he's probably doing okay. And he doesn't really care. That's my gathering from this guy. I don't think that this guy bought a car he couldn't afford. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I could be wrong. But let's watch them try to figure it out. They're having a hard time. Wow.
Rachel, some people's cornbread just ain't done in the middle. You know, they just didn't fully bake in the oven. So let me recap what this guy just said. He bought a vehicle that was $62,000 MSRP with $0 down, $1,300 a month for 60 months. Which, if you're doing the math at home, is $78,000 for a vehicle that was worth $62,000
before he drove it off the lot, and that it's depreciated already.
And so his logic, though, has nothing to do with the interest paid. He's going, why would I put more down? It's only going to lower the payment by $100. What's the difference between $1,200 and $1,300? And this is why we're broke. It's not. We can't keep blaming inflation and eggs. At some point, we have to look in the mirror and go, stop being an idiot. Stop buying $62,000 cars and paying $78,000 for them while making $50,000 and then going,
well, that's where the problem is. Right there. I already jumped to the assumption The guy's only
Wait, did he say how much he made? I didn't think he did. Did he?
No, he didn't. But Skippy's assuming he only makes 50,000. It's like, no, I mean, it looks. Did you see the guy? This is not a guy. This is the kind of guy like that golfs every weekend. This is the kind of guy who, has a racquetball team. This is not the kind of guy. I'm sure this guy's making well over six figures and he doesn't give a shit. I mean,
well, let's also be honest, though, that without knowing how much money he makes, we don't know what kind of decision this actually really was. If he did make 50,000, I would put this into the stupid column real fast. I don't know that I'd be inclined to want to spend that kind of money on a car, even if I made a lot of money. But we don't know if he made a really stupid choice or if it was totally fine, because we have no idea how much this guy makes.
I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now. The guy's wearing an Air Jordan shirt that's vintage. Those are at least $100 for a T-shirt. I'm sure his hat cost $50 or $60. I'm sure his sneakers cost a couple $100. This is not a guy who's. I don't think he's broke at all. I don't think he's making 50,000 a year. I think he's probably doing okay. Either way, he doesn't really seem to be bothered by it. He doesn't seem to care. But here's the thing. So he's right. Yeah, you're going to end up paying $62,000 for the car plus the extra $16,000 in interest payments over the life of this. So yeah, he's paying $16,000 in interest. I'm sure this guy doesn't think about it because he's probably going to flip the car and trade it in for a new car on a new payment in a few years anyway. The other thing Skippy doesn't do because he can't do math is he can't figure out that the thing that shocks me the most is if you actually run this, the interest rate the guy is paying on this loan, if it's a 6-year loan, is 9.4%. So if this guy came into my office and was talking about this, I'd be sitting there going, why are you paying such a high interest rate on a car loan?
Yeah, that is really high.
We need to talk about that because we could probably, if there's some situation with his credit or something, let's talk about getting that down and refinancing. I could probably save you the $100 a month, in a year or so if we just did a couple things. So I just think that, once again, they're looking to, once again, it's personal responsibility, blame the individual. They're not actually looking at the problem and how to solve it. They never ever do that. Am I off on that or you there?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. You froze there for a second.
Am I back?
I can hear you. Let's get back into this. Hopefully it'll correct itself in a second here.
Wish Biden would really fix it, and the taxes and the egg prices are out of control, Rachel. I'm going full king of the hill at this point.
Oh, I love it, George. Well, for me, car loans, car payments, it's my worst type of debt. If we had to rate debt, for me, it's the most annoying. Student loans, you get a degree, it's stupid. That's probably second.
Sure.
Credit card.
Wait. No, I just like that with Rachel's whole thing. So, car loans, she hates car loans, right? Number one. Then student loans, because, you get a degree, but it's stupid.
How does she hate student loans more than credit card debt?
I know.
I think it seems a little pointless given their stances. They don't like any debt, which is fine. But given that's their stance, ranking which one she dislikes the most seems silly to me, but whatever.
Yeah, but she ranked them by cheapest to most expensive. She hates cheap debt, but not as much as she hates expensive debt. Or she hates expensive debt, but not as much as she hates cheap debt. So car loans are usually pretty cheap. Student loans are pretty cheap. Credit cards are freaking expensive, but those are third.
Right.
Once again, I think the acorn didn't fall far from the tree on this one.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. No, I know why you love her so much. She's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Whatever. So if we rate the debt, car loans for me, it's the dumbest
And it's
debt
the
that
one
you
we
can be
justify the most.
It's but mathematically speaking, when
It
you
is the
just
dumbest.
look at your finances, it's the dumbest thing that you can do with your money. It really is, because you're
Okay, this is what's really stupid about that. 90% of Americans own cars. Most people have to have a car to work, survive, take their kids to school. It's a necessary debt for a lot of people. You can't function without it. So this idea that, a car loan is just so stupid. It's like, well, some people, if you don't have any money and you got a job and you need a car, you don't fucking have a choice.
Right?
And out of the three of them,
and some people, well, they'll say they'll basically tell people to get some sort of like a junker car, and I don't have any issue with that in particular, but some people really value having a car that's more reliable, and they don't want to have to be paying repair bills on a regular basis with those vehicles, or they do not have the skills to be able to fix a vehicle if it breaks down. So they just don't want to fool with all of that stuff, and they're allowed to have that priority.
Well, and sometimes you have a job where you have to have a nicer car because you can't be showing up in a piece of shit. It's just reality. So it's out of the three she mentioned, the only one that potentially is a necessary debt is a car loan. You're not forced to go to college. That's an option. I mean, unless you had my parents, and then it wasn't an option. But but credit card debt, yeah, that's a lot of that's just not always forced. Sometimes you're forced to have credit card debt if you're broke, but the one that you're really forced to have is a car because most of the jobs I've ever had required a car. You had to be able to get to and from work. You had to be able to go meet clients. You had to be able to go whatever. I mean, I was a cop. I mean, you have to travel. Sometimes you have to drive. I mean, so this is just ridiculous. I mean, so anyway, but remember, this title of this video is "Don't Be an Idiot." Just want to stick a flag in that.
borrowing money, paying interest on something that's going down in value. It's not an asset, and it's for what?
Work
to look
to
good.
Say that. I mean, I'm being serious. Like, I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like, it's one thing when we talk to people and they're in credit card debt because they're behind on their bills and they're trying to live. You know what I mean? Like, and you're kind of talking through this needs versus wants, and we get those calls, all the time. But I'm like, but a car payment, it's literally for $62,000 to look a certain way and feel a certain way. It's an ego thing. The book, The Psychology of Money. Have you read it?
Oh, I'll agree with that in this sense. And for this guy, yeah, it probably is. He probably bought it because it makes him feel good. I don't know why that's a problem. Go ahead.
Well, you know what? I said that's probably true, and he has to make a choice about whether that's worth these payments and that situation to him. And obviously, he did make that choice. So,
and if he can afford it, who cares? I mean, they're circling around solving the great mystery of who fucking cares that this guy bought a $62,000 car. Do we care? But no, for them it's mostly about they want to rag on you're poor, you shouldn't be buying stuff. That's it. That's the whole gig.
No, Delaney told me to read
so
it.
Good. It's
I've heard
so
great
good.
things.
But I love what he said in there. He said, really, the reason people don't save, like, it's your ego. And so if this guy's ego was out of the way and drove a great Honda Civic and didn't have that car payment.
By the way, I didn't read this book, but it's pretty much laughed at. It's not. It has nothing to do with behavioral finance. It's really pathetic. Anyway, go ahead.
He would be able to save that $1,300 a month,
but instead,
and invest it, but it's going into not an asset. It's again because it goes down in value. It's not even like a house.
$62,000 car is now worth $50,000 and then $40,000 the next year.
It's just, and again, it's for a car to get to point A to point B. And I'm not mad at cars. We like cars.
Sure.
So it's not that, but it's the way our mindsets around it and financially how it plays out. It just becomes such a huge burden on families, and it's not wise.
What's
so that
shocking
poor
to me,
guy, come on, dude.
Like, we have such a culture of debt that we're so obsessed with debt that the logic doesn't go to, hey, how much am I paying in interest? Instead, it goes, well, my payments actually, it's $100 more, but what's the point of putting more money down? Just save $100 on my payment.
Right.
We're still thinking in such a stupid lens of what's the payment? Can I afford the payment?
They're not even looking at the entire mathematics.
Well, and I would disagree. It's not a culture of debt. It's more of most people just don't understand how this shit works. Would you disagree with me on that, or am I off?
Don't understand how what part works. Clarify.
Any of it. Most people don't even understand how a basic loan works.
That's true. That's true.
I don't think it's like there's a culture of we have to have all this debt. I think a lot of it's just people don't understand it, and then they get caught up in it. I got to tell you, I've probably 400 or 500 people I've helped get out of credit debt in the last 10 years, right? And I used to do these for like $150. If you brought me your credit debt, I would develop a plan for you to get out of it as quick as possible. And I would develop and I'd give them 3 or 4 options and show them how they work. Right?
Right.
And I would say most of those people that at least that I know of that contacted me got out of the debt, followed the plan. Sometimes it took them a little bit longer. Sometimes they were able to do it quicker. But a lot of it was just, I didn't realize I was paying that much.
Right.
Right. And so once they got to that point, they were like, oh, well, now when I go to the store and use my credit card, I sit there and go, well, wait a second. How much is this pair of shoes actually going to cost me? Yeah,
right.
they were.
People have become a little more aware then.
Right. These pumps they're $60 on sale, and I really like the pumps, but if I pay with my credit card and I don't pay off my credit card at the end of the month, now all of a sudden these pumps might end up costing me $200 or $300 over the next 2 years. Now they start to, well, shit, then I'm not really getting a deal. So,
right.
But when they think about it that way, I mean, I'll give you a great example. When I went to the police academy, one of the big courses, police officer survival training and weapons retention was a big thing, right? And they tell you all these horror stories about cops that lost their guns and suspects stole their guns and used their guns on other people. And a weapons retention, making sure that you don't lose your gun was a big part of that, right? And so once I finally became a police officer on patrol, man, I could tell you the whole time I was paranoid about losing my gun or somebody taking my gun. Or any weapon off my tool belt at that point. Because then you're sitting there thinking, oh shit, if I lose it, somebody could take it. But most of these idiots who carry guns, they don't think about that because nobody trained them to think that way. Nobody trained them about the danger. Right? Because the reality is, and this is true, when you're carrying a gun, and they would tell you this at the police academy, every time you're carrying a gun, any fight you get into is a gunfight because you have a gun on you. You've already escalated everything just by walking into the room. So you have to be aware of that fact. But if you're not trained to think that way, then you're thinking, oh, well, I'm just carrying a gun and it's cool. Right? And that's how people get hurt.
That's a dangerous way of thinking. That's not a good mindset.
No, because you're not thinking about the risk. You're only thinking about, but that's the point is like, okay, so let's think about what the risk is here. For this guy, it might not be any risk. He might be making enough money. He wants the car. Cool. If it's somebody who can't afford it, then it's a bigger risk. Right? On the other side of the coin, he's right. Most people don't think about, I'm taking the debt. What's the actual cost of taking the debt? But it's not because they're obsessed with debt or they want debt. It's because they don't know how to think about it. Because if you'd have just said to this guy, hey, in interest payments, you're going to pay $78,000 for the $62,000 car. He might step back and go, well, wait a second. So I'm going to pay an extra $16,000 for this fucking car?
Right. He might still opt to do it, but he might also go, no, I was willing to pay 62 for this car, but I'm definitely not willing to pay 78 or whatever.
Right.
You know, like.
Yeah, but it's not that he's got some obsession with debt or his ego or anything necessarily. It's probably just he doesn't understand. You know.
Well, most people aren't stopping and doing that sort of math beforehand on their purchases.
Well, because nobody really explains it to him.
Right. Right.
It'd be nice if they'd sit there and explain, well, look, dude, understand what you're getting into. You know?
Right.
All right, but let's get into this because I'm going to go so this is the whole point of this. So with these videos, when you watch guys like this, and Skippy's going to do this, they're going to bring up an article that they read that supports whatever they're saying. Anytime somebody does that, you should go look up the article. And that's what we're going to do in this next little bit here. Because Skippy's going to bring up an article that he didn't read to support his position. And it's going to be great. On a video titled, Don't Be an Idiot, the guy is going to quote an article he didn't read all the way through.
Oh, brother. All right, Duncan, we're not watching this entire video, though, are we?
No, we're just going to get to that and go out and be out.
Math equation for getting interest and all of it.
And,
yeah.
Well, here's where that short-term thinking leads us, Rachel.
There you go.
Okay,
This
tell me.
CBS News article. Millions of Americans nearing retirement age with no savings. So here's a real sad story of a woman who's juggling 2 jobs. She's 66 years old, sometimes working up to 11 hours a day, wishing to be retired, playing piano, enjoying her life, but she has no savings or 401k, not even enough to cover an emergency. She sold her home and bought a smaller one with 2 other women at 66.
Yeah.
This is really sad. And here's the stats. The U.S. Census Bureau data shows that 50% of women and 47% of men between 55 and 66 years old have no retirement savings. Half. Zilch.
That's pretty wild. That if you were to quiz me, if we did a pop quiz, I wouldn't think it was that high. I didn't think it was that high.
Oh,
man.
And she said, I have a live for now philosophy, I guess. You think? I mean, it's shocking to me that people wake up at 66 and go, I should probably do something about that retirement thing, huh? Instead of using time while we have it on this, our precious time on earth.
Right.
To retire with dignity and have a great...
All right, so here's his synopsis of this CBS article. And it's actually not an article. It was a news report. And this was the summary of the on-air news report that he read. So his synopsis is, okay, so there's this millions of Americans are not saving or don't have any savings for retirement. And of course he uses this this woman as an example, right? And the interesting thing to me about that is this woman, Marianne O'Connor, and we'll look at this real quick, doesn't have any savings for retirement. Now, his synopsis is, well, the problem is these people just spend too much. They don't think about saving for retirement. They blow it off, right? And that's why 40% of whatever it is, women, and 40-something% of men don't have any retirement savings. Because they blow it off. They don't think about it. Right? Is that the reason why so many people don't have retirement savings? I don't know. Let me see. Let's pull this over. Let's see. So here's the article. So she's got the whole thing. Yeah, I have a live for now philosophy. Now he does take that out of context because she's talking about right now she doesn't have any money, so she's working and doing other stuff, right? But the next paragraph, right after that, this is where he stops. The next paragraph in this synopsis. For her and others without a nest egg, experts said it's not too late to make a plan. According to the AARP, that includes continuing to work, lowering your cost of living, saving when you can, delaying Social Security benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Stuff we talked about. Changing your expectations, making more money, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. According to the ARP, nearly 57 million Americans work for an employer that does not offer a retirement savings plan. Doesn't that seem like the bigger problem?
And again, it's a systemic problem.
So this woman...
Systemic.
Yeah. So this...
We go back to the problem where they're blaming the individual for a problem that is systemic. Now, what I will say is, let's state the obvious. This woman could have opened an IRA of some sort and been contributing to that.
But that's still would not...
In all fairness, we will say that that's an option.
Sure, but that's still, even if she maxed out, it still wouldn't compete with what a 401k could earn her. An IRA would be next to nothing compared.
Especially with most 401k opportunities people have through work come with some sort of match. So, you know, a little bit more bonus money sort of being thrown on top of it when you put money in. So even though she'd have an IRA as an option, still it's a systemic problem that she and so many other people don't have access to this through their workplace.
Right.
The pensions have been taken away and people still don't necessarily have options for 401ks. And that's not a good thing.
Well, right. And the thing about it, though, is he gets right to the point in the argument, or in the article, at least not the article, it was just a synopsis. He gets right to the point where it proves whatever point he wants to make, and then he cuts off the last part that actually says, no, the problem is these people don't have retirement savings through their work. And the idea that she would know how to get an IRA, what if she was a waitress her whole life? Who would have told her that? Where would she have learned that?
Right.
You know, that's a ridiculous thing. And so I'm going to do one more thing real quick. So I followed down the ARP a little bit, and I went to this Forbes article where they talk about this. And America does not have enough retirement savings, really. I mean, and that's a big deal, right? 48% of older households have no retirement savings. Okay. Now, they're not considering defined benefit plans, just defined contributions. But very few people have both. 29% have neither a defined benefit nor a defined contribution. So I wanted to get into that just real quick.
Wait, Duncan, pause. For the viewers, tell us what is the difference between defined benefit versus defined contribution, just quickly.
All right, so there's a difference between a defined contribution and a defined benefit for your retirement plan. So defined contribution plan would be things like an IRA, a 401k, 403b, 457, etc. They can be traditional or Roth. Now, the difference between that is in a traditional account, you don't pay the taxes up front. You pay the taxes when you pull the money out later on. As for a Roth account, you pay the tax up front, and then you don't pay any tax when you pull the money out later on. Those are the differences. So when you retire with a defined contribution plan, that lump sum of money that you have in the plan is your money. You can do whatever you want with it. You can take out as much as you want, whenever you want. You just have to pay tax on whatever you owe tax on. So you kind of get to define how much you put in, right? But how much you take out is undefined. A defined benefit plan, usually referred to as a pension plan. Social Security also qualifies as one of these. They're almost always traditional. You can't take a Roth option. So you're paying taxes when you pull the money out. You don't really get to decide most of the time how much you put in. It's fixed. You are required to put in X amount every month. Usually, like, your employer will have one, and X amount of your paycheck goes into the pension every month. Does that make sense, Lacey? Am I going too fast here?
Absolutely. No, I think you're doing a great job of breaking it down and explaining it.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so your money goes in every month, and then when you retire, that lump sum amount isn't yours. It's the pension's. But what the pension does is it'll guarantee you a payment every month, usually based on that lump sum for the rest of your life. And you can get other options like your life plus 10 years or your life and your spouse's life, and that'll change the amount based on the actuarial table that they're calculating it on. But you don't get to choose what to put in, but it is defined what you get every month, and you get it for the rest of your life, so it's secure. So the thing that's changed a lot since the 70s, right, and this is kind of a fun fact, is in the 70s, almost everybody had a defined benefit plan. So you worked, and every month your money went in there through your boss, through your pension, through the city, through the state. I used to be a cop. I had a pension. Lacey's a teacher. She has a pension. So we know how these work. But the nice thing about them is they're guaranteed till you die. You know, the negative is if you start collecting pension and then you die really quick, you didn't really get the benefit of the pension. But that's what it is.
Also true.
But if you have...
This is where one of the benefits comes in that you mentioned, Duncan, where pensions will often let people elect to take a slightly lesser amount in order to have their partner receive their pension after their passing. So there are options like that. You're not around to enjoy it. However, it's nice to know that it could take care of somebody that you needed to take care of.
Right. Well, just real quick sort of history lesson. The benefit of a defined benefit is you never worry about running out of money. It's guaranteed to pay you until you die. So if you live to 140 for some reason, that thing is still paying you every month what you're guaranteed to be paid. So you never run out of money with a pension. That's the bonus to it. The negative is if you die early, you lost all your money that you put in. Okay? And a defined contribution, if you die early, well, that money just goes to whoever, right? In a inherited account, right? But if you... The negative is that if you live too long or you live past what your amount is, you can run out of money, which is what happens to a lot of people, right?
A lot of people run into the situation where they don't have enough money and they're watching it run out before their eyes.
Right. So in the old days of retirement planning, right, for financial planners, you used to have the three legs of the stool, right? Social Security, your pension, and whatever your savings or defined contribution stuff was, right? Your IRA, 401k, et cetera, right? The 401k was actually started by Kodak, the company, and they lobbied for it in Washington. And 401k is just the tax code it's under. But the reason they did it was for wealthy executives to be able to have tax deductible money so they could hide money from the IRS. And what happened was when they passed it, they made them give it to all their employees, right? And all these companies started doing it, and they realized, hey, the 401k, we don't even have to monitor it. We can just pay a firm to do it, and it's way cheaper than a pension. And so all these companies got rid of their pensions. So now it's only the two legs of the stool, your Social Security and whatever you have saved.
And you know what happens when you go and you sit on a stool with two legs?
Yeah, it falls over. Unless you have really good balance.
Yes. And most people don't have really good balance.
Right. So anyway.
You make connections you want to make with people.
So anyway, just to sum up, it's the whole video is stupid. So it's a guy talking about he bought a $62,000 car. They turned it into he overspent on the car. We don't know that. We don't know how much the guy makes. He doesn't seem bothered by the price of the car, right? But they had to make it into like a personal fault of his because they have to have something to bitch about. The one thing is he didn't understand interest. And then, of course, they turn it into, well, see, people aren't even saving for retirement. When the answer to that question is, well, that's because a lot of them don't have the option. They're not given the option by their employers. And you can say, yeah, they could save on their own or save in an IRA, but what you're not getting is, would you get a 401k? Is your employer's not matching your contribution. So it's a lot harder. Plus, IRAs have caps to them. You can only put I can only put $6,000 in an IRA this year. And if you're making over a certain amount, you can't put money into an IRA. So, I mean, it's just, it's one of these things where they are almost dependent on their employer to provide these things. Otherwise, they're not going to have savings for retirement. So, once again, they half read an article or they saw a clip and half read an article and just sort of fudged their way through it and got it all wrong. So, anyway, fun stuff for that. So anyway, we're going to wrap up. Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
All right. So if you're looking for articles that I've written or information about my coaching program or workshops that I do, you can find them at mysynthesense.com. If you want to get further information about any of that, or you want to write into us, tell us how much you love us, hate us, or send us something that you want us to perhaps feature on the show or a topic suggestion, you can feel free to email us. Duncan, where can they email us?
You can email us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Also, if you want to call in and talk about something, send us an email. We'd be happy to schedule a time. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time. Have a great day.